The sun was setting on the dusty mining moon called Kara 7. It was a quiet place, full of rusted machines, broken parts, and forgotten dreams. Most people had left the moon years ago, but one human stayed behind. His name was Ryan. He lived alone in an old workshop filled with tools, engines, and scrap metal. He fixed broken machines and traded them for food, fuel, and supplies. Ryan was not rich. He was not famous. He just liked building things and being left alone. He had no idea that his quiet life was about to change forever. That night, as Ryan worked on an old mining bot, a loud sound echoed across the sky. A ship, burning and spinning, crashed near the edge of the cliffs. Ryan grabbed his light and ran toward the smoke. The air smelled like metal and fire. He expected to find a wreck, maybe an empty ship or a body. Instead, he found something strange. A small silver ship was half buried in the ground. Its design was nothing like any ship he had seen before. Its surface was smooth, with strange glowing lines. The door was cracked open, and smoke poured out from inside. Ryan climbed in carefully, calling out, "Hello, is anyone in here?" He heard a soft cough, then a weak voice. "Please help." He rushed in and found her, alien woman, unconscious. Lying on the floor, her skin was a soft shade of violet, her clothes torn and dirty. She had a cut on her forehead and a bruise on her side. Her eyes fluttered open for a moment, then closed again. Without thinking, Ryan lifted her gently and carried her back to his workshop. She was light, like she hadn't eaten in days. He laid her on a cot in the back room, cleaned her wounds, and gave her water. The next morning, she woke up slowly. Her eyes were bright and golden, filled with confusion and pain. Ryan was sitting nearby, watching quietly. "You're safe," he said softly. "You crashed near my place. I brought you here." The woman tried to sit up, but winced, her lean against the wall. "Thank you," she whispered. My name is Leora." Ryan nodded. "I'm Ryan. You're lucky to be alive." She looked around the workshop. It was messy, but warm. Machines lined the walls, tools scattered everywhere. The air smelled like oil and metal, but it felt safe. "Where am I?" she asked. "Kara 7, he said.
Not many people live here.
"Any more?" "Just me, really. I fix things." Leora stared at him. He looked young, maybe in his 30s, with messy brown hair and kind eyes. His clothes were old and covered in grease, but his hands were careful and gentle. "Why did you help?" "Me?" she asked. He shrugged. "Because you needed help." Leora was silent. She had seen many things in her life, people who only cared about money, power, or fame. But this human didn't ask her name, where she came from, or what she could give. Him? He just helped. In the days that followed, Ryan worked on her ship. It was badly damaged. Some parts were melted, others completely missing. We didn't ask questions about the design or the technology. He just focused on fixing what he could. Leora stayed in the workshop, resting and helping when she could. She didn't speak much about her past. Ryan didn't push her. Instead, he taught her how to use simple tools. She watched as he repaired engines, cleaned old wires, and built machines from scraps. He made things work with patience and skill. One evening, as they sat near the fire, Leora finally asked, "What do you want in life, Ryan?" He thought for a moment. "I just want peace. And maybe someone to talk to now and then." She smiled softly. "That's rare." He looked at her. "What about you?" She hesitated. "I wanted to escape, to breathe, to find someone who sees me, not what I own." Ryan didn't understand, but he didn't ask more. Instead, he handed her a small gear with a smile. "Here," he said. "You helped fix this today, your first finished part." She held the gear in her hands like it was something special. Outside, the stars shone brightly over the quiet moon. And inside that old workshop, something new was beginning, something simple. Honest and rare, Liora, had run from a life of power and riches. She had expected coldness and danger. But instead, she found a human who gave her kindness without asking who she was. and for the first time in a long time, she felt safe. The morning on Kara 7 was quiet as always. A thin layer of dust floated in the air, and the wind blew softly through the broken metal towers near the edge of the mining fields. Inside the workshop, Ryan was already awake, tightening bolts on. A repulsor unit. Leora sat nearby, watching him with quiet eyes. She had been there for a few days now. Her injuries were healing slowly, and her strength was coming back. But she didn't feel ready to leave yet. Not because of her ship, but because of something else. Something she couldn't name. "Your ship's core is still unstable," Ryan said without looking up. "I think I can fix it, but I'll need a special converter." "The nearest town with that part is about 2 days away." Leora looked at him. "Won't that be dangerous?" He smiled a little. "Everything out here's a little dangerous. But I know the roads. I'll go." She stood. "Up, no. I want to come with you," Ryan frowned. "Are you sure?" "You're still healing. I'm not weak," she said, her voice calm. "Ow. And I need to see more than just this workshop." He nodded. "All right. We leave at noon." They packed small hover cart with supplies and began the long journey across the dusty plains. The land was dry and full of old machines, rusted towers, and giant broken pipes. Strange creatures watched from far off, but didn't come close. Ryan drove the hover cart, and Leora sat beside him, the wind brushing against her soft violet skin. As they traveled, they talked, not about her past, but about simple things. "You always lived here?" she asked. "Since I was a kid," he said. "My parents worked the mines until the company left. They stayed behind. When they passed, I stayed too." "Never liked the big cities. Why?" she asked. "Too loud. Neil. To fake. Here it's quiet. Real. Things break. You fix them. You help someone, they remember." Leora was silent for a moment. "But you're different, Ryan." "How so?" "You don't ask questions. You don't push. You just accept." He chuckled. "I figure people tell you what they want you to know. No need to rush." That night they camped under the stars. A small fire crackled as Ryan heated up some food. Leora sat beside him, holding the small gear he had given her days ago. "This place," she whispered, "feels peaceful." Ryan looked up at the sky. "Yeah. No noise, no cameras. Just stars and dust." Leora glanced at him. "You'd be surprised how rare that is." He turned toward her. "You sound like someone who's seen the other side of life." "Maybe." "I have," she said softly. "Maybe I just wanted something different." Before Ryan could say more, a sound echoed in the distance, a low hum. He stood up and scanned the horizon. A black ship floated low above the sand, scanning the area. Didn't look like a trade ship. LIORA single quotes S face grew pale. "Bounty hunters. They're looking for someone. They're looking for someone." Leora looked down. "They're looking for me." Ryan didn't ask why. Instead, he pulled out a tarp and threw it over the cart. He motioned for her to follow him behind a rock formation. They waited in silence as the black ship passed overhead, its light sweeping across the land. But it didn't stop. After a few minutes, it moved on, disappearing into the night. When it was safe, Ryan looked at her. "You want to tell me why?" "They're after you?" Leora met his eyes. "Not yet. Thank you for not turning me in." "Wasn't planning to," he said. "Just glad you're okay." They continued the journey the next day, reaching the small outpost by evening. It was a rough place, metal buildings, loud voices, and many eyes watching strangers. Ryan moved. With confidence, heading straight for a parts dealer, he knew. Leora stayed close, her hood pulled low over her head. "Got the converter?" Ryan asked the dealer. "Maybe," the man said, eyeing Leora. "It depends who's asking." "Someone who pays," Ryan said, showing a small bag of credits. The man grinned and handed over the part. "Careful out there. A lot of hunters around these days, looking for someone rich." Ryan just nodded and walked away, on their way back. Leora finally spoke again. "Thank you for not asking too much." "You'll tell me when you're ready," Ryan said. She looked at him and smiled. "Maybe sooner than you think." As the hovercart rolled through the desert under the starry sky, something had changed between them. Not just trust, but something deeper. Leora was beginning to feel something she hadn't felt in a long time. She was no longer just hiding. She was beginning to feel seen. The return to the workshop was quiet. The desert winds had picked up, carrying fine dust across the path, but neither Ryan nor Leora said much. They were both thinking about the bounty hunter ship that had passed nearby. Ryan didn't ask anything. Moore and Leora didn't offer any details, but something had shifted between them. An invisible thread of trust was growing stronger. Once back at the workshop, the special converter was just what he needed to stabilize her ship's core. As he fixed the power line, Leora watched him with thoughtful eyes. She wasn't used to this. In her world, people always tried to impress her. They bowed, flattered her, and tried to gain her favor. But Ryan didn't do any of that. He worked with quiet focus, treating her like an equal. "Can I help?" she asked. He looked up and smiled. "Hold this wire here and hand me the small torch." She knelt beside him and followed his instructions. Her fingers were still. A bit shaky, but Ryan didn't mind. He was patient. When the circuit sparked to life, they both smiled. "You're learning fast," Ryan said. "I have a good teacher," she replied. The days passed quickly after that. They spent hours working together, repairing the ship, fixing other machines, and sharing quiet meals. Leora started to feel a kind of peace she hadn't known she needed. She laughed more, slept better, and even began to dream again. One afternoon, Ryan showed her a small device he'd been building from spare parts. It looked like a mini drone, with simple wings and sensors. "What's it for?" she asked. "Nothing," he said. "Just wanted to see if I could make it fly again." "Like fixing broken things." Leora looked at the drone. It used to be like that drone. Damaged, controlled. I never felt free. Ryan didn't say anything right away. Then he said, "You're more than just a part to be fixed, Leora. You're strong. You just forgot." She stared at him. No one had ever spoken to her like that, not even those close to her that night. While Ryan was sleeping, Leora stood outside the workshop, looking up at the stars. She turned on her wrist device, something she had kept hidden from him until now. A small screen lit up, showing messages from her empire. Hundreds of alerts, ships searching. People worried, but she ignored them all. She opened a private log and recorded her voice. Day 12, I met someone. A human, kind, honest. He has no idea who I really am. And yet, he treats me better than anyone ever has. I don't want to leave. She paused, then closed the device. In the morning, while Ryan was fixing a fuel line, Leora came over with 2 cups of warm synth tea. They sat on the workbench and sipped quietly. "Ryan," she said, "do you ever wonder if the galaxy is too big for one person to matter?" He thought about it. "Sometimes, but I also think one person can change someone's world. Even in a big galaxy." She smiled. "You changed mine?" He looked surprised. "I didn't do anything special." "You didn't have to," she said. Just then, a loud knock came from outside. Ryan stood quickly, motioning for Leora to hide. She slipped into the back room while he opened the door. A man stood there, tall, armored, with sharp eyes. "A bounty hunter, you, Ryan?" the man asked. "Who's asking?" Ryan replied, keeping calm. "We're tracking a fugitive, violet skin, female, dangerous tech. You seen anything strange?" Ryan shook his head. "This is Caro 7. Everything's strange. Haven't seen anyone but dust and broken bots." The bounty hunter scanned him, then glanced past his shoulder into the workshop. "Mind if we look around?" Ryan stood firm. "This is private property." The man smirked. "We'll be back." After the hunter left, Ryan locked the doors and returned to Leora. She sat on the floor, looking down. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm putting you in danger." Ryan sat beside her. "You saved me from being alone. I'm not going to turn on you now." She looked at him, eyes soft. "I should tell you the truth." He nodded slowly. "Only if you want to." Leora took a deep breath. "My name is Leora Valeri, not just a traveler. I'm the heir to Valeri Corpla, biggest tech empire in the galaxy. I ran away because I was tired of being watched, controlled, expected to be perfect, needed. To be free, even if just for a little while. Ryan didn't move. He didn't look shocked or impressed. He just said, "Okay." Look linked. "That's it? You're still the same Leora who helped me fix a drone and drank synth tea with me. The rest doesn't change that." Her heart felt full in a way she hadn't expected. She smiled, really. Smiled. For the first time, someone had seen her, not the name, not the wealth, just her. The sun rose slowly over Kara 7, casting long shadows across the dusty plains. The quiet of the morning was broken by the soft hum of machines working in Ryan's workshop. Outside, the wind carried the smell of metal and earth. Laura sat at the edge of the workbench, watching Ryan tighten bolts on a strange device she had never seen before. Her thoughts were heavy. The truth she had shared the night before still felt new and fragile between them. Ryan looked up and caught her gaze. "You okay?" She nodded, but her eyes showed the weight she carried. "I think I'm scared." "Scared?" Ryan asked, setting the wrench down. Leora took a deep breath. "Yes, scared that the people chasing me will come back. Scared that I'll lose this feeling of freedom I've never had before. And scared that you might stop trusting me." Ryan moved closer. "I won't. I promise." She smiled faintly. "Thank you." For the next few days, they worked side by side to finish repairing her ship. Ryan fixed circuits, replaced panels, and rewired systems with care. Leora helped where she could, learning quickly, but mostly watching how he worked with steady hands and quiet patience. One evening, as they tested the ship's engines, a sudden alert flashed on Leora's wrist device. The message was clear: unauthorized. Presence detected nearby. Approach with caution. Ryan saw the warning and immediately moved to a window. In the distance, dark ships appeared on the horizon. Moving fast toward Caro 7. "They're coming," he said grimly. Leora's eyes widened. The bounty hunters. Without hesitation, Ryan moved to secure the workshop doors and prepare defenses. He had a few homemade traps and alarms, but nothing that could stop a fleet. Leora paced, thinking quickly. "We need to hide. The ship, me, everything." Ryan nodded. "There's an old cave system nearby. It's deep and hard to find. We can hide there." They packed what they could carry and left in a hurry. The sky was darkening, and the black ships grew closer. The cave was cold and quiet. They settled inside, catching their breath. Leora looked at Ryan with gratitude and fear. "Why are they after you?" Ryan asked gently. Leora hesitated, then said, "My empire is powerful. Some want control. Some want to use me. I escaped to find a life of my own." Ryan nodded. "They don't deserve you." Hours passed as they waited. Outside, the sounds of ships landing and searching filled the air. Ryan's traps slowed them, but the hunters were persistent. Just when it seemed the hunters might find them, a sudden signal came through Leora's wrist device. A fleet of defense drones appeared in the sky above Caro 7. They were sleek, armed, and controlled remotely. "What's happening?" Ryan asked. Surprised, Leora smiled with relief. "Those are mine. My empire's protectors. They've been searching for me too." The drones scanned the area, firing warning shots that sent the bounty hunters fleeing. After the danger passed, Ryan and Leora returned to the workshop. The attack had shaken them, but it also showed a new truth. Leora turned to Ryan. "You helped me when no one else would. Even knowing who I am now, you stayed." He smiled simply. "Because you're not your title. You're you." She looked at him with a new hope. "Maybe it's time I stop running." Ryan nodded, "and start living together." They began planning a new future, one where Leora could be free and Ryan could find a place beyond the quiet moon. The days after the attack were calm, but filled with quiet tension. Ryan and Leora worked side by side, fixing her ship and preparing for whatever might come next. Caro 7's dusty wind blew outside, carrying both hope and danger in its silent breath. Liora felt the weight of her past slowly lifting. She was beginning to believe she could live for herself, not just as a figure in a galactic empire. Ryan was her anchor, steady and real, in a world that had often been cold and fake. One morning, as Ryan repaired a solar panel, Leora sat beside him, watching the soft glow of the rising sun. She held a small data chip, one that contained secret files about her empire. It was a heavy reminder of the life she had left behind. "Ryan," she said quietly, "do you think people can really change? Not just act different, but really change?" Ryan looked up, wiping sweat from his brow. "I think they can, but it takes time, and it takes someone who believes in them." She smiled softly. "Thank you for believing in me." They worked through the day, and as evening came, a new sound echoed over the plains, a low rumble that grew louder by the second. A fleet of ships was approaching Caro 7, but this time they were not enemies. A diplomatic vessel, shining bright and powerful, landed. Near the workshop, Leora's eyes widened. "That's from my empire." Ryan helped her inside the ship's landing bay. A tall man in official armor stepped forward, eyes sharp but respectful. "Leora Valeri," he said, "we have orders to bring you home. Council wants to discuss your future." Leora looked at Ryan, searching his face for advice. He nodded gently. Should hear them out. Inside the ship, the council representatives spoke of duty, responsibility, and the power she held. They wanted her to return, to lead, and to unite the Empire's fractured parts. But Leora felt torn. She had tasted freedom and kindness in the desert with Ryan. She knew she could never go back to being just a symbol. "I want to lead differently," she told the council. "Not for power or control, but for the people." The council members looked surprised, but listened. Ryan stood, quietly at her side, a steady presence. The days passed with meetings and talks. Leora surprised many by her ideas projects to help poor colonies. New laws to protect workers and peace agreements with old enemies. Slowly, the empire began to change. Leora was no longer just a wealthy woman or a target. She was a leader. With a heart, one evening, after a long day, Leora and Ryan stood outside, watching the stars. "Thank you," she said softly. "For helping me find myself?" Ryan smiled. "You found yourself. But I just helped you see it." Leora reached for his hand. "Will you stay with me? Not as a mechanic, but as my partner?" He looked surprised, then nodded. "To be anywhere else." Under the vast galaxy, two souls connected not by wealth or power, but by trust and kindness. The morning light poured softly through the windows of the newly rebuilt workshop on Caro 7. Ryan moved around quietly, checking tools and making small repairs. Leora stood nearby, watching him with a calm smile. Her life had changed in ways she never imagined after returning from the council meetings and beginning her new projects. Leora had chosen to live simply. She stepped away from the royal halls and the endless responsibilities that once weighed her down. Instead, she focused on helping people, especially those in forgotten places like Caro 7. Ryan was amazed by how much she had changed, not just in her actions, but in her spirit. She laughed more, dreamed bigger, and carried herself with a quiet strength that came from knowing who she really was. One afternoon, as they worked together on a small hovercraft, Leora paused and looked at Ryan. "Do you ever regret staying here with me in this quiet place?" He smiled without hesitation. "Never. This place, this life, it's real. And you're real." She nodded, feeling warmth spread through her chest. "I used to think my worth came from my empire. Now I know it comes from moments like these." Ryan reached out and took her hand gently. "You don't have to carry that weight alone anymore." Just then, a message came through on Leora's wrist device. It was from the new council president inviting her to a peace summit. They wanted her to speak not as a wealthy heiress, but as a leader who had changed. Laura looked at Ryan. "It's time. It's to show the galaxy who I really am." The journey to the summit was long but hopeful. Leora stood before representatives from many worlds, telling her story not of wealth or power, but of kindness, courage, and change. Her words inspired many. She spoke of a galaxy where every life mattered, where even the smallest voices could be heard. Ryan watched proudly as she spoke, knowing he had helped her find that strength. After the summit, Leora and Ryan returned to Cur 7. Life settled into a new rhythm: work, laughter, plans for the future. One evening, under the stars, Leora turned to Ryan. "Thank you," she said simply, "for seeing me." He smiled. "I always did." They stood together, two people from different worlds, bound not by riches or titles, but by trust, respect, a quiet kind of love. And on that small, dusty moon, a new story began, a story of hope, change, and a future built together.